In this second lesson, we will delve into ASME PCC-2, Repair of Pressure Equipment and Piping. As we mentioned previously, the subcommittees, PCC-1, 2, and 3, are in charge of dealing with various aspects of pressurized systems or equipment, primarily during their useful life. They're not generally in charge of evaluating new equipment, but rather in-service equipment, as well as preparing standards that address various aspects of in-service inspection and maintenance. The Inspection Planning Standard provides guidance on preparing a risk-based inspection plan. Flaws that are identified are then evaluated, where appropriate, using the fitness for service procedures provided. Finally, if it's determined that repairs are required, the procedures provided by the PCCs provide guidance on the repair of pressure equipment and piping. It's important to keep in mind that none of the PCC guides are codes, although this sounds a bit contradictory since their own name, PCC, indicates Post-Construction Code. They are not codes, as is the ASME 8 Division 1 Design Code, for example. So we're not talking about mandatory codes, but rather codes that provide recognized and generally accepted good practices that can be used in conjunction with codes such as API 510, API 570, and NB 23, as well as jurisdictional requirements. This is not a surprise since it would be impossible to gather every possible cape and type of repair that can be found. Each repair is unique, and although some seem very repetitive, they all have their nuances. It would be almost impossible to collect every single case, which is why this is a compendium of recognized rules and practices based on some of the most common cases. PCC-2 is divided into 5 parts. Part 1 covers the scope, organization, and intent of the code. It's applicable to all articles. Part 2 covers welded repairs and is made up of 16 articles. Then we have Part 3, mechanical repairs, which includes 13 articles. Part 4, non-metallic and bonded repairs, 3 articles. And finally, Part 5, that talks about examination and testing to be carried out in each of the repair methods, which includes 3 articles. It's worth clarifying that each of these articles is a specific repair method within the part. To see each article in detail would take months, which is why in this course we'll focus on the most relevant topics in the code. Based on that, we can say that the general structure of PCC-2 is as follows: welded repairs, mechanical repairs, non-metallic repairs, and examination and testing. These are the 4 main areas that we'll cover throughout the course in order to study different repair methods and apply them to pressure vessels and piping systems in a practical way. A question we probably all ask ourselves is there a table that directly relates a repair method to a type of failure? As we mentioned previously, this would be very difficult since each repair is unique. Since there are so many diverse repairs, it's hard to conceive a table where a type of repair is recommended based off of the flaw detected. In reality, this table did exist. It was Table 1 of the 2015 edition of ASME PCC-2. This table listed all the articles and different repair methods and related them directly to different types of failures. For example, if we have general wall thinning, local wall thinning, or pitting, Article 2.1, which are butt-welded insert plates, would be applicable. So basically, what this table does is indicate the applicability of different repair methods depending on the different failures and flaws found. As we see, here we can find all the repair methods. We have Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and finally Part 4. Before, we said existed because currently this table does not actually exist, as it was removed from the code. This has to do with what we previously mentioned. Each repair has so many variables that it ends up being unique. Therefore, simplifying everything in a table is impossible, which is why the committee decided to eliminate it, starting with the 2018 edition of the code. In the end, this is actually only a guide, so each repairer will be the one to decide which of the methods to apply. However, we can use the table as a reference to get an initial idea of the type of repair that could be applied. Another question that many of us ask ourselves is, what does it mean for equipment to have an ASME seal or stamp? This question may seem a bit obvious, but really there are certain industrial processes where this type of seal is not needed. The ASME stamp is a mark applied to the nameplate of equipment manufactured by an authorized workshop or other organization. This stamp indicates that the equipment or component has been manufactured in accordance with the applicable section of the ASME BPVC. This is basically a quality certification, since the equipment has not only had to follow a series of protocols and inspections during the design process, material collection, manufacturing, welding, and testing by an authorized manufacturer, but it must also have been supervised by a third party. It should be noted that the ASME stamp applies to pressure vessels, but it's not applicable to piping systems. In the United States or Canada, for example, it's mandatory for pressure vessels to have an ASME stamp. In Europe, the ASME stamp is not mandatory, but all newly installed equipment must have CE marking. Although it's not mandatory in Europe, the ASME stamp is very good practice and is an additional quality seal, which is why many industrial plants adopt it as a guarantee of the safety of the equipment. Simply put, by having the ASME stamp, we ensure that the equipment has, at the very least, passed a series of inspections and is safe. These are some considerations to take into account based on what we've said. Just because a piece of equipment does not have the ASME stamp doesn't mean that it has not been designed in accordance with the code. A lot of equipment is manufactured according to the code, although later, for various reasons, it's not stamped. The stamp is a requirement primarily associated with safety issues. Since equipment that has the ASME stamp is understood to meet all safety requirements, the cost of associated insurance will be lower. It should be taken into account that, although the stamp entails certain advantages, it's an exhaustive and expensive process. Not any workshop can place an ASME stamp. They must be approved in order to do so. In the image, we can see different stamps. The U stamp for Section 8 Division 1, the S stamp for steam boilers, and the R stamp for repair. As we can see, there are different stamps for different components. For example, the U stamp for Section 8 Division 1, like we saw, U2 for Section 8 Division 2, and U3 for Division 3. The next question we ask ourselves is, if the equipment has an ASME stamp, how do we maintain the stamp and continue to comply with the code requirements when making a repair? If the equipment has an ASME stamp and a failure occurs and needs to be repaired, it must be decided whether or not to maintain the quality certificate. If it's decided to continue maintaining the quality seal of the equipment, for example, for Division 1 or Division 2 vessels, the repair must be made in accordance with the National Board. This is the same as saying NB23. It's important to clarify that this only applies to vessels under pressure and in cases where the intention is to maintain the ASME stamp, since at the time of repair it can be decided to not maintain it.